You know, a lot of times we get into situations with people where we just don't understand the way they think and the choices that they make. And we find ourselves being really critical. And also, we'll be in situations where it seems like somebody else is super critical of us, and it's most annoying. That kind of criticism often is really just because you're different. You think different. You don't see things in the same way. And boy, how boring would it be if you did? This is the thing that I find with my couple so often, is that we have this tendency to think that we have to think exactly the same way, or we have to like exactly the same things, or we have to do things exactly the same way, or then we're going to have an argument about it because if you don't do it the way I think it should be done, then we should do it my way. And if we don't do it my way, then there's a problem. And that kind of thing, you know, it happens in these like really subtle ways. I'm Melody Brooke. I'm a licensed professional counselor, a marriage and family therapist, an author, an actor, filmmaker, screenwriter. And I've just been really blown away when I think about how much we tend to be enmeshed in our relationships, where we think that if we are not exactly the same in every way, then there's a problem. And yet, oh, that would be so boring if everybody was exactly, especially like the person that you lived with all day long. So learning to allow that other people can think differently, and it's okay, and they can do things a little differently, and it's okay. And I mean, obviously, unless it crosses some kind of a boundary that causes you a personal problem, then, you know, you might want to just let them be them and let you do you, and it's okay. And that doesn't mean going separate ways, right? It doesn't have to. There are times, obviously, when it does. For example, if your partner wants, you know, let's say what are they called when you have multiple partners? Yeah, so maybe your partner wants to be ambisexual, or whatever that word is I'm looking for that's not coming to my mind. That is not something you can necessarily go, yeah, that's okay, because that's fine with me. If it is, fine. But if it isn't, you know, it's just a difference in the way you look at things. We look at things differently. And it doesn't make the other person bad or wrong because they don't look at it the way you do. But when we're dating somebody, sometimes we will see like these major things that are like, I can't live with that. I know that I can't live with that, but you know, there's all these other things that are really wonderful, and we're really getting along and really enjoying each other, and there's all this chemistry between us, and there's these things that we know are going to be a problem. And rather than saying to ourselves, you know, it's interesting, I really like this person, and it's okay. They do things differently than me, and I can live with this, or I can't live with this. And we decide that we can, it'll be fine. I'll get to convince them to change. They'll be different once they're married. They'll be different once we're living together. And those differences don't really matter. And then you get face to face, day to day, and you realize, oh, I just can't live with this thing, and they better change it. If they don't change it, then we're just going to have to stay in this place of battle. And it may be possible that really you might not have really should have agreed with that choice in the first place. Or maybe it's something that you can go, yeah, that's fine. It's not really a big deal that they load the dishwasher different than me. It's not really a big deal that they don't drive exactly the same way I do. Maybe it's not a big deal that we don't necessarily have the same things we like to watch on television. But there are those things that are deal breakers, right? That make it, you have to realize that you can't live with. There are some things like, I could not live with a smoker. I could not do that. And that, I know this about me. So no matter how much I like somebody, no matter how much I thought we had that was, you know, this wonderful spark, if they smell like cigarettes, I'm not gonna, that's just not something I can do. And I know for some people that's not a big deal. They don't mind. Maybe they're a smoker too, or it just doesn't bother them. And we're different that way. That's okay. What's not okay is to tell yourself that it is okay when it isn't. And this is something, boy, if I had to learn the hard way. I don't know about you, but that has been a hard thing for me because growing up, I had to learn to just be okay with whatever happened in my life. You know, we didn't really have a lot of choice growing up. We're kids. We don't get those choices. My parents both, smoked cigarettes. I didn't really have a choice about being around that. I didn't really have a choice about having to just go along with a lot of things that I didn't like, didn't enjoy, and I had to pretend they were fine because I didn't want to get into a big fight with my parents. Because I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to take care of me. So I kept my mouth shut and just went along. I don't know how many of you have done that, but I suspect an awful lot of people do that. And then you think that that's how it has to be in your relationships. You think that when you find a romantic partner, yeah, well, your parents smoked, it wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah, maybe, they watch pornography. My dad watched pornography, it's not that big a deal. Well, the truth is maybe you had been shutting down all that reality of what you actually wanted, what actually was okay with you and what isn't, just because you had no choice but to live with those people. You have a choice about the partners you pick. You have a choice to listen to yourself. You might not have had that choice as a kid. You might not have had the ability to notice what you were feeling about it as a kid. As an adult, your job is to know what works for you and what doesn't. And it's okay. Different people can have different choices. That's absolutely beautiful. It's the way the world works. But you've got to know for yourself. For yourself. As much as I like this person, as much as I can see that this person has all these other wonderful qualities, there are these things about a person that I can't live with. And knowing those when you go into a relationship is very helpful, which is helpful to know yourself a little bit before you do connect with another person. And that's not always easy to do because we spend so much of our lives growing up where we just shove down our needs, shove down our feelings, shove down our desires, shove down what it is we think and how we want things to be for ourselves, just so that we can get along with our parents. And that is not any way to have a long-term relationship with a partner. In fact, it's a recipe for disaster because at some point, either you're going to have an emotional divorce or you're going to have an actual divorce, or you're just going to spend the rest of your lives arguing and never quite accepting each other for the way that you are. So what if you could start listening to yourself and speaking your truth and knowing where your boundaries are about what is okay with you and what isn't, so that you can choose to have the kind of relationship with yourself, number one, and with other people in the process. Because choosing to ignore what feels right to you, choosing to pretend that you don't have feelings, or pretending, or even going through life not even knowing what it is that is happening inside of you. And you know how we find that out? You know how we know that we don't know? It's when your body starts showing up those physical symptoms. Maybe you have IBS, maybe you have asthma, maybe you have weight gain, maybe you start drinking too much. There's lots of things that happen when we're not paying attention. And most of us grown up to just ignore so that we can get along, lie, don't speak the whole truth, lie to ourselves, lie to other people, not acknowledging that we are different in the way that we think and we feel and what we want and what we need. This is the thing that I most wish to impart upon you, that you have the ability to know yourself, what your body is telling you that you need, what your wisdom is telling you is right for you. Being able to own that truth, even if it means losing out on a connection that you really hoped would work out. And it's brave to do that. I mean, I get it, because it means facing truths that are uncomfortable or that might leave you feeling alone or grieved. But today, my wish for you is that you would find the time to tune in with yourself, get mindful, get focused and breathe and get to know what your body is telling you about what it is that really matters to you, and use your voice to say, yes, I want that. Or no, that's fine, go do that. That's not what I want. And to be able to accept that it's okay that other people have differences in the ways that they are, and they don't have to be exactly like me. In fact, I wouldn't want anyone to be exactly like me. How boring would that be? Besides that, I'd probably be really annoyed with the other person because they were, too much like me. So my wish for you is to enjoy your Christmas time, your New Year's time with your family, with your friends, noticing the differences, noticing, oh, I feel differently about that. That's interesting. That's interesting. They see that way. Instead of trying to convince them that they have to see it different or do it different or be different than they are, and see that it's okay. That's a different way to look at it. That's a different way to feel about it. That's interesting, and I want to know more about that rather than having to insist that they do it exactly your way. Knowing your way, knowing what your way is, and being okay with who you are, and being okay with who they are, and knowing when you have to separate out because what they bring is not going to be good for you. I know that's like a lot in a nutshell, but it also comes from your body wisdom. So I invite you to listen to your body, what your emotions are, what your wisdom is telling you need in your life. And you have the right, in fact, you have the responsibility to listen to that and vocalize it, because that is what a true relationship is. If you're not doing that, you're not really in relationship with the people in your life. So that's my Christmas wish for you all, and my New Year's wish. So I'm here every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can find me at melodybrook.com, and my book is on Amazon. It's called Oh Wow, This Changes Everything. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Let me come up here for a second. Hey, Margaret, hi. Thanks for being here. And I want to say hi to Shirley and James and William. Thanks for being on today. I enjoyed getting to share myself with you. And if you have any thoughts or comments or ideas that you might want to share, just let me know. If you have anything you'd like to talk about, a particular topic, I would love to talk about it. I could usually talk about just about anything. So I will see you next time. Have a wonderful Christmas. See you then. Bye.